Hello and welcome back to another Island 54 development stream where normally I'd be working on a survival crafting MMO, but today I will be finishing up my submission for the Brackies Game Jam. Progress hasn't been great on my entry, but the purpose of this week was meant to be for me to just go through the motions of building a game and getting the game out there. So I need to confirm that I'm live on both Twitch and YouTube. It looks promising. But I just need to double check. Twitch is definitely live, and YouTube. Let's just check that out. Hold on. Ooh, what's it doing? Your channel. Yep, we appear to be live. Excellent. Oh, the name is really bad. Let me correct that name. If I can remember how. Restream. This should only take me a moment. I don't remember how to do it. I don't remember how to do it. That's okay. Streaming setup. No, I'm gonna have to give up. Okay, I'll be able to do it in the YouTube side of things, YouTube Studio. Content. What am I going to call it? Finishing up development on my laser puzzle game. All right. So I finished up yesterday's stream with, I had been trying to get, let's hit play if we can. I'm not sure if it's compiling at the moment. Should be. So where we finish things up, there's a laser that propagates correctly. You can drag mirrors in from the toolbar. It decrements this count. These can be done. Now where it breaks is if you've got two of the one mirror, it automatically reduces the count to 0. And of course you can also clone these mirrors, which is not ideal, but otherwise the game kind of works. What I was going to do yesterday afternoon, but didn't actually end up having time to do, was taking the code to handle this mouse dragging and just factor it out a bit more, because it's all a bit messy at the moment. The input handler is responsible for all of the all of the dragging behavior. It's responsible for keeping track of which cells were clicked in and have been dragged over. It's responsible for drawing the updates for that. And so this is just a mix of behaviors. So I don't mean mono behavior there. I just mean the actual behavior of the code. And it's also got UI code. So I really need to break this out. And so I'm kind of glad I didn't do this yesterday afternoon, because this is probably a good thing to do on stream so that people can see my actual process of refactoring code like this. So I'll probably have to take a couple of shots at this. But the first thing I'm going to do is get into Excalidraw. Can I start a new document? How do I do a new? Load, export, save as image. All right, I think I'll just export it. I'll just reset it. And it just occurred to me, I probably have the wrong channel on my Discord notifications. Social notifications. Hold on. My Discord's crashed. Okay, I need to get some sort of a notification out because this is, I'm pretty sure I've set people to the wrong spot. Let's reply to my own tweet. I don't post to YouTube anymore. Okay, so that's easily fixed. I will just reply, quote the tweet. I'm also live. Bring this tab over here. Link to my channel. I don't have a vanity channel link yet. They won't let me have one until I've got more subscribers or something. So be sure to subscribe to my second channel if you haven't already. There's OBS. So here is my second channel if you'd like to subscribe to that. And what else do I need? I need to kill Discord. I will be back and ready to develop in just a moment. Excellent. So I mentioned in yesterday's stream, sorry, I've got a bit of a cough today. Too much talking. I don't think I'm sick. I mentioned in yesterday's stream that the implementation of this input handler, or at least the drag handler, should probably be some sort of a state machine. So I'm just going to put a bit of my thinking about this. How do I fill that circle? Background. Yeah. So I'm going to just draw up a state machine for, normally it's just going to sit in this state. So this is the case where the nothing's happening with the mouse. Yeah, let's just do that. Some large text. And then over here, mouse state machine. Now, when someone clicks, we want it to go into some sort of a state. So let's do that. Text. On mouse down. Just to know, can you group things in? Yeah, you can group things in this tool. That's kind of cool. So now this arrow can be moved around. It's good to know. So on mouse down, we are going to go into a new state called, what was that? Called dragging. Now, there's probably a decision to make before that, because if you click somewhere that there isn't an item, so if I just click here, you're not dragging. So I think that there needs to be a, oh, don't do that. Ungroup these. I'm not used to this tool yet, so you're going to have to bear with me to some extent. To group those. Yeah, that's better. That's kind of cool. But I want to have a little decision point in here. And in here, what it's going to do is it's going to say, it's going to check whether or not the thing you're targeting is draggable. So on mouse down, and then in here, small, it's draggable. And otherwise, you just come back to the initial state. Okay. So far, so good. Bit of this stuff around just to get this looking a bit prettier. Nice if you could cause that to link rather than grouping it, but that's okay. I don't need this all to be too pretty. Okay. So on mouse down, we check whether or not the tile is draggable. What's this thing doing? There I am saying this tool is awesome and then having serious troubles with it. Okay, so on mouse down, check if it's draggable, and if so, then we move into the state of dragging. Then what can happen? Well, you've got two different things that can happen from the dragging state. Either you targeted cell changed. I'll use kind of more event type names. The reason I'm glad that wasn't anything too sensitive. So here's an event, whereas here is a state is drag, not a state, sorry, a parameter is draggable. Whereas on target cell changed, okay, we detect when the target cell changes, and we go down this path. And then over here, we are going to handle the case of on mouse up. So that's when the drag completes. That's all cool. So if the mouse goes up, then we are going to back up through here. On mouse up. On target cell changed is fortunately just going to come back and do exactly the same thing. Let's actually move these around like this, this, and like that. Okay, that looks like a simpler state machine than I was expecting. Does it handle everything we need? I haven't put any of the actual actions in here yet. We'll get to that in a moment. If we kind of click on empty space, we get an on mouse down, we can then remember how to do a copy. There we go. Not is draggable. So if you click on empty space, it'll just come back through here. If it is draggable, then we come into the dragging state. And once the mouse releases, we do whatever we need to do to end that drag. So that'll be actually moving things into place, probably stuff like that. If you actually drag your mouse over a different cell, so the target cell changes, then we are still dragging, but obviously there's some stuff we want to do in here to update state, internal state. Okay, that works for both the dragging an empty space and dragging an item in the level. What about for dragging items out of the inventory? So that is where you drag from over here. It's this case I'm trying to cover. Now, I think that what's going to happen is I'm actually going to end up with a second state in here because this is, let's call this normal dragging. And let's call this inventory dragging. The thing is, as soon as you get an inventory drag into the level, this is now just like a normal drag. Our behaviors are going to be quite different between them. So what I'm going to do in here is ungroup. Let's call this init dragging. So there's the initial dragging. Now what we need to do is handle the case of the cell changing out of here. And then that will come into another state called I'm getting slightly better at using this tool. That'll come into another state called dragging. However, we're going to take a little detour here in the case that depending on whether or not the thing is an inventory item. I'm going to put an intermediate state in here. It's not going to be like a state that it actually stays in. It's going to be a non-stable state. This is going to be inventory, removing inventory. Okay. So if it's inventory, then we are moving that, and then we are immediately going to go into this dragging state. So I'll just reflect that quite obviously with a star. Otherwise, not is inventory. Goes into the dragging state. This one over here now comes over here. Okay, this is starting to look better. Come up with a second handle in here, that would be nice. Okay, I think that's my state diagram. There's still one more thing we need to do, which is when the mouse comes up, in fact, we've got a few things we need to do here. We still need to handle on mouse up over here, like that, and then like that. Yep, that looks pretty good. The thing is, on mouse up, might need to do a couple of different things, because it's going to need to place the item, and that behavior might actually change depending on whether or not the item was an inventory item or an instantiated item in the world. So what do I need to do here then? I think I'm going to have just a little decision point in here. The normal notation for it. Test was inventory. So we need to know whether or not this item came out of the inventory, because if you don't have a valid drop target, then you're going to have to revert it back to the back to here. We also don't handle the cell changing from inside here. This is a really simple case. This is just what we had before, so something like that. And again, this is going to have to test this case, because the actual behavior of that is going to change depending on whether you were dragging an inventory item. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this state machine and I'm going to implement a class to kind of implement that. I'm going to have to just move this off the screen. It means you guys don't have it on your screen for reference. I have an easy way of getting that on the screen for reference. I can manage this. Let's come up with a nice little, that up there, this along, lose a little bit of real estate from that. Right. Here we go. So, new class. I'm going to put it in the UI, make a new package. Called drag. It's just a standard class called a drag manager. Notice this is not a mono behavior. And the logic here is that this is just a state machine. It doesn't need to know anything about Unity for me to implement this. And I could conceivably write unit tests and things for it to simulate these events and make sure that it behaves the way I intend it to behave. Doesn't mean it's the way that it should behave, but yeah, we'll get to that later. Okay. First thing we need is the overall state. We're going to have an idle state representing just the entry state up here. Init dragging, let's call it pre-dragging. I'm not going to have a state for remove inventory because that's sort of a synthetic state. I think there's a proper way of drawing that in a state machine, but I can't remember. So there are 3 states. Now, what else do we need to know? Well, we need a private variable for that. Field. Private state. Let's just call it state for now. We'll make it a property from. I can't do that. I thought I could do that. Oh, that's better. How did I was meaning to type public there. The reason I can't use that name is yeah, if this were a type outside this class, then I would be allowed to call that state, but since it's not, I can't. Fair enough. Okay, so we've got the state. What else do we need to know to implement this? We're going to need an event handler of some sort for on mouse down. We're going to need a way of querying if that mouse down event corresponds to is draggable. We're going to need a way of knowing whether or not a target cell changed. So we'll start with on mouse down. I'm just going to have a handle mouse down method, public void handle mouse down. Obviously we need some sort of a parameter in here. Now, my other option would actually be to define an interface which represents the mouse. Let's try that path. Interface called drag manager mouse. So what we do here is this would have, I'm not sure if we're allowed to declare events in an interface. I think we can. That looks reasonable. So we're going to have a public event on mouse down, public event on mouse move. These will need to take some sort of a mouse location. I'm going to rename this just to mouse. We're in a namespace anyway, so this is fine just to call that mouse. So we could have those. We need to know whether or not a cell contains a draggable item. We need to know whether or not a cell is an inventory item. Or is a cell inventory item? Seems pretty straightforward. Does that let me do everything? Oh, we don't have a mouse up. Public event action mouse location on mouse up. Hello, Chris P. Welcome to the stream. Currently working on a silly little laser puzzle game as part of Bracky's Game Jam. My drag handler for moving items around in the puzzle was getting a bit complicated, so I'm just factoring it out into logic versus UI versus other stuff at the moment. I expect this will take me about an hour or two to get the refactor done, and then I will hopefully have working drag and drop. Okay, does this give me all of the mouse operations I need? On mouse up, on mouse down. We've got mouse move somewhere in here. Mouse down. On target cell change, that'll come from the mouse move, that's fine. So back in the drag manager, to detect whether or not, oh, well, we don't need handle mouse down anymore, because I'm moving that out into a separate interface. We do need to know whether or not the cell has changed. Now, in order to do that, I am going to need to store a mouse location, which is going to be the current location, or last location. we are able to test whether or not a particular cell was inventory. Now, are these really part of the mouse? Probably not. Let's move them out into another interface. Now, I should point out, Chris P, this is not what I normally work on stream. I'm normally developing a survival crafting MMO, but just this week I've decided I've never actually made a game from start to finish, so that's what I'm doing this week. I'm just going to call this level proxy. It's just a proxy that sits in front of the level and allows me to query stuff about it. Now, we're also going to have to do a couple of other things. Whenever we actually do a mouse move, so here's an on mouse up, and we've got another case over here, which is on target cell changed. We need to do something in here, depending on whether or not it was inventory. Now, what is it we need to do? Oh, you watch my other streams. Awesome. Oh, you're on YouTube. I only just noticed that you're on YouTube. I've not been going out to YouTube for a while. Yeah, I was just assuming everyone's on Twitch at the moment. What do we actually got? We've got 3 people on, 2 on Twitch and 1 on YouTube. Okay, so we need to be able to ask the level whether or not something's draggable, whether or not something is an inventory item. We need some concept of an item reference or something like that. Yeah, I ran a poll a couple of days ago because I suspected people don't like a lot of people on YouTube don't like watching things on Twitch. I'm sure there are people where it's the other way around, but given most of my viewers are on YouTube because of my devlog, I thought I'd test that, and the poll suggested there's a lot of people who really don't want to or can't use Twitch for some reason. I expect Twitch is much more likely to be blocked by people's firewalls and things if they're watching me in the background from work. Okay. And then combined with the fact that I think that all the notifications for the streams were kind of irritating 95% of the viewers who are just there for the devlogs, that's why I decided to make this second YouTube channel so that people can subscribe if they're after the streams or just ignore them otherwise. Best of both worlds for everyone, I think. You dislike Twitch as a platform? Yeah. Somebody commented they don't like the controls on Twitch, and yeah, I was trying them out, and it's quite weird. You can't, in the standard player, you can't pause with the spacebar, which I find strange. And the arrow keys don't go back or forth. They work on VODs, but not on streams. I find very strange. Is cell draggable? Is cell inventory? Yeah, so I need a reference, some sort of an item reference. So let's just do a public class item reference. Now, this is allowed to store, I guess, an item state, no, tile state. Or it could store an item state. So it's going to be one or the other. So I think I'll actually put setters and things on these. I'm allowed to refer to these, by the way, because these are my purpose here is to have absolutely no Unity references in this drag management stuff. These are my own classes that are just logical state for a tile. Do I have the game running? probably going to die here on that recompile. No, cool, it's at least running. So these are tiles, and the tile state is just the logical state for those. You know, what type of object is it? What's its orientation? Stuff like that. Whereas over here, these are items. These are a bit different. But again, I just store the logical state in these item state objects. The only way that these get pushed through to Unity is through this level renderer script. So I'm allowed to refer to the state objects themselves. That's all fine. I'll put setters on these. Let's just do a private, because I want to enforce the fact that you cannot reference both a tile and an item at the same time. So let's do a private tile state underscore tile. And then let's put a getter for that and a setter. Underscore item equal to null, and then underscore tile equals value. Here, private item state. Oh, I can't type. I'm actually going to very quickly turn a heater on in here. One moment. Hello, John, and welcome. Yeah, so my it's a beautiful sunny day here in Sydney. It doesn't seem too cold outside, but my house, wow, it really seems to trap the cold. Once my fingers get cold, it's not so pleasant. A bit hard to type. I've got the heater on now though, so hopefully that'll warm things up. Didn't mean to blind you all there. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to do just this same block of code. I take it John is a random guy. You're allowed one bad joke. One bad joke only. Item is value, tile is null. All right. So this item reference is able to reference either an item or a tile. So it's just let's call it an entity reference then. YouTube is working, but it's on my second channel. Give me a sec. Copy link. There you go. That will get you there on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe if you're not already subscribed to that. And yeah, you probably want to, I don't normally ask people to ring the notification bell, but you probably should, because I mean, you're in here every day. So get your notifications that I'm going live. It is live. Well, of course, it's live out there. We've got Chris P is on YouTube. Yeah, YouTube's funny. You've got to hit that. Got to hit that notification bell. It's so weird about when it does or doesn't notify you. I do find that if you use the notification bell, it does actually, and set it to all, it does actually send you the notifications. But it's so random as to whether or not it sends notifications otherwise. I just get notifications for stuff I really don't particularly care about, and that can be a bit frustrating. One bad joke, random guy. Give us your worst, or your best or your worst, not sure which. Okay. So, we need to be able to what do you call a belt? Wait, watch. Oh, I'm going to be able to get this one. This is going to be a waste of time. If that's if that's it, then I quite like that one. Okay, so what do I actually need to do here? Where's my browser? Here we go. My state machine is down here. So the thing I need to be able to implement is this one here and this one here. We need to know when somebody drags or releases the mouse button, we need to be able to either, in the case of a drag, we need to be able to move an item from one cell to another, because I'm actually doing the movements in real time. Alternatively, when you're dragging, if you drag this one over to here, then it can't place that item there. So it just shouldn't do that. So it should kind of return it to the last place that was valid. Like, yeah, I mean, this is the exact behavior here. You can see the dragging kind of follows the mouse, and there we go. That's the behavior I want. However, if you drag from over here, then until you've dragged it into the world, it should be coming back into here as long as that's not valid. So as I'm coming along here, it should leave the item up in here. So what's the best way of implementing that? Well, I kind of foreshadowed that here. We almost have this case where if you're dragging an item rather than a tile, so this is a tile, this is an item. If you're dragging an item, we want to go into this kind of the pre-state. I think you should just do and it doesn't matter if it's the wrong timing random guy, just do the brackies one. Just keep the theme of we're not alone and just see what you can do with that. And you don't have to do it the same week as everyone else. And I think that the game jam people kind of know what they're doing with coming up with a theme that is kind of suitably broad and vague to kind of get people's creativity going. So we've got this kind of state here where we delay the dragging in the case that it's an inventory item. So I am going to add a state in here because as soon as you drag an item into the main level, from here on out, it is absolutely identical. There's no way that this item can end up back in your inventory. Well, it just did then. That's pretty funny. Another bug there. Yeah, do a side game, but that's what I'm saying. Just use the game jam as an excuse to do a side game, and don't even do it in the same week. Just do it next week. It's a good opportunity just to get something out. Okay. The other option that for making a side game is, I reckon, just pick two kind of mostly unrelated games, simple games, and try merging the ideas. So, yeah, I don't know. I keep on using Flappy Bird as an example of something people can make, but Flappy Bird meets Pac-Man, something like that. Yeah, absolutely fun to remake this in Unreal Engine. Uh, yeah, absolutely fine. Or you could make my MMO in Unreal Engine if you want, but that's more than a side game, I think. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have removing inventory is actually going to have something similar to this. Messy here. Do that. Is valid target, and let's do a not is valid target here. So when we get into the removing inventory, call this pre-drag inventory. Okay, I'm about to totally change this. Here we go. Slightly simplify it. I'm going to call this pre-inventory. And then what I'm going to do is I'm not going to come into this pre-dragging state. I'm instead just going to call this pre-drag tile. Pre-drag tile. This one I'm going to call pre-drag item. I'm using inventory and item interchangeably here. But then on mouse down, what I'm going to do get rid of that for now, is I'm going to come into one of these two states. Which of those states we come into is going to depend on yeah, go for it, random guy. I very much encourage you to do that. I mean, other than the difference in graphic design skills, is a polite way of me describing myself, because they're not good. I would expect them to look really, really, really similar, and for a 2D game. So 3D is where you might start to see quite a bit of difference in graphics, but in a 2D game with pixel art, it's really just whatever. Yeah, it's just about whatever you tell it to draw at that point. I wouldn't expect to see any major difference. But I'm certainly not claiming any originality in this idea. I mean, this is no different to a million and one other puzzle games out there. I say go for it. Are you going to do it as 3D? Yeah, awesome. So we've got this. Over here we've got is item over here. What am I doing? Is tile. Almost there. Starting to look a bit better. I'm gonna get this text. Text. Okay. So from pre-drag tile, when you drag it out, it's about to simplify again. So the only difference in here is, in this case, this is going to fire some code that does the decrement count. It's going to do a decrement count. It's going to do an instantiate item. Whereas when you're dragging normally, I've lost a bunch of my... Normally when you're dragging in here, it's just going to be moving. It's going to be removing a tile, then adding a tile. Which, incidentally, okay, can get rid of this, can get rid of that. Spending longer on this modeling than I thought I would. State modeling. I don't think I need the pre-drag tile state. I can just get rid of that. And the reason for that is there's no difference when I start a drag now. There's no difference in this state and some future state once I've actually started the drag, this one now. Like I don't even need to remember where it came from, because if I release my mouse now, it'll just go to here. If I drag it to an invalid location and then release my mouse, it will just go to here. So my drags are actually like I never actually drag from the start point to the end point. I'm really just always dragging from the previous point to the current point. The only reason we need this pre-drag item state is because in the case that somebody starts the drag here and then release their mouse, we need to make sure this doesn't decrement. Now, what behavior do I have here? It doesn't do the decrement until it's found a valid target, but at that point, it's as if you've just started dragging it from that location. I'm pretty happy with this. In here, we don't need to test if it was inventory. Because at this point, we know that it's in the world. My only other one is from here to here, which is going to be on mouse up. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. And this doesn't do anything, right? This is just a reset all the states. This one, on the other hand, oh, well, that also doesn't do anything. Because we've already actually performed the move. So in fact, both of these are really just setting, this is just from anywhere to there. Yeah, I'd love to see procedural level generation on this. I'm skeptical of it being feasible, just because I'm not. You really do want your levels to be compelling. They need to have an interesting solution and be like, if there needs to be a point to each level. If they're just repeating the same mechanic over and over again, then I don't think they'll be all that interesting. And I'm not sure how a procedural generator can achieve that. But I am more than willing for you to prove me wrong on that. I'd love to see it if you get that. If you get a compelling level generator. This isn't meant to be is inventory. Okay, this has started to simplify, hasn't it? So when the cell changes, yeah, different items. I want to have different items. Just going to run out of time is my only issue. Okay. Let's just come down here. And then I'm going to have two different ways of getting back into here. One is there. The other one is there. But these have ever so slightly different behaviors. So one of them is the case of not is valid. So we don't have a valid target. Like that. And there's nothing to do there. The other one is in here, which is going to be is valid target. But this one is more interesting because this one needs to be able to perform the move. Okay. I need on target cell changed. So absolutely, without a doubt, I need on target cell changed. I need to be able to decrement counts on items and instantiate items. Now, does an item state know its index? Yes, it does. Okay, so I have enough information here to perform these. So is cell draggable? Do we need to know that? We do need to know is cell draggable for this check here. I'm going to call this one pre-drag item. So let's come back to our manager. This is going to be pre-drag item. I need to be able to perform a tile move. That's going to happen on the level proxy. In here, we're just going to do a perform tile move. Oops, that doesn't belong in there. I'm actually not convinced that I even need this level proxy. I do need a cell, but I can just use a vector2int for that. I don't mind using the Unity type for that because it's not really a UI type. Is cell draggable? If I have a copy of the level, then I have enough information to work that out internally. I'm happy with this logic living inside the state machine itself. So let's get rid of that. Let's rename this to entity reference. Oh, right. I'm going to start implementing this. I need a constructor. We need access to the level itself. Oh, this doesn't need to be set. We only ever have a single level manager. Do that. We do need to know the current level. That level, current level. Nope, that's not right. Level state. This needs to have the level manager injected. And we need to handle level being changed on level changed. I can just do this inline since we're not going to be changing this subscription. Current level equals level. If the level changes, we need to simulate a mouse up event. Now remember, in my new design, mouse up really doesn't do anything. So I'll be a bit clearer here and actually call this one cancel drag operation. Or end drag operation. There's nothing for us to do in here. Now to end the drag operation, all we need to do is set the state to idle. Let's draw this. Oh, current state. Okay. First bit of level design done. Wow, that was quick, Random Go. I'm noticing something else here, which is, so I've got this other class. Oh, just bumped my light. I've got this other class called entity reference, which I've put in a bunch of logic to make sure only one of them set at a time. But something I'm noticing is the very first thing we do when the mouse goes down is once we confirm that it is a draggable tile, we ask whether or not it's an item. No, I'm unlikely to stream tomorrow. Sorry, random guy. It's a weekend here, and yeah, need to have 2 children. Need to keep occupied. So yeah, I don't stream on Australian weekends. So if it's an item, we go into this state here. And then we might bounce around within this state for a bit before eventually coming out here. But once we come out here, we no longer care that it was an item, because at that point we've instantiated the item in the world, and there's no way for that item to get back into the inventory. So in this case, we could have a property of the item index that we're dragging from. Whereas in this case, we could just have a reference to the tile that's being dragged from. So I actually don't need this entity reference class. This is why it's sometimes worth just getting this stuff really bedded down before cutting code. Otherwise, you do end up wasting a bit of effort with your code. Or worse, you don't do this at all, and you end up with a bad design decision like I just had there, propagating through to your code. And you just can't get rid of it because you can't see the issue. So, yep, we've got our state, we've got the last location that our mouse was, that's used for tracking when the cell changes. This is actually going to be a vector2int. No longer need that mouse thing. We have a what have I got here? Let's get rid of mouse location. Instead, just do vector2int. I love that feature in IDEs. Okay, so we've got 2 different fields that might be set here. We could have an item state. Which is going to be called item source, or we could have a tile state, which is our tile source. I'm just going to null everything out here. Last location could absolutely be undefined. Item source, tile source. Yes, these are meant to be private. It'll probably be a fairly long stream today, though, I suspect, because I do want to get this stuff done. Maybe I'll have a break in the middle. The advantage of having the second YouTube channel is quite often I was like, oh, I wouldn't mind streaming this afternoon, but I really didn't want to have multiple notifications going out to everyone. I thought that was just going a bit crazy, but given this channel is entirely for streaming, I don't think anyone will care. So that means I can take a lunch break and then just resume the start the stream again afterwards. All right, so we know where we're dragging from. We happen to have a rule that only one of these is allowed, depending on which state we're in. I zero everything out when we end the drag operation. Let's call this reset. It's slightly more accurate. I think that will make sense when I write the code around here. Okay. Do we know whether or not something is an item or a tile? Got our mouse. Well, we have to query that. Let's start writing our subscriptions. No, I didn't. I did talk a bit about probably doing a longer stream today, or if I take a lunch break, I might do a second stream this afternoon instead. Okay, what are my events? On mouse down. How do we get an on mouse down? This is going to be in the mouse. I need to subscribe. So something I need to pass through in here is the mouse. So whoever's creating this needs a way of firing events off to us. And we can do a mouse.onMouseDown. We need, I really need to name these, so that'd be silly to try and do these all in line in the constructor. Let's just do handle mouse down. Oh, why is it not letting me autocomplete that? Create that, move it down by one. There we go, handle mouse down. We need to handle mouse up. On mouse move. "1 a.m. in the morning for you?" Yeah, so I'm guessing you won't hang around for an afternoon stream. Okay, can we create these two methods? Mouse down, mouse move, mouse up. What else do I need? Got my mouse down. I'm going to ask the level whether or not things are draggable. Use the level to ask if things are items. Okay, I think I'll implement this next. This chunk of logic. So this is just the on mouse down handler. Handle mouse down. I'm going to put a check in if current state, if not current state dot equals idle. Not expecting to see that, but let's just get out of there because we don't know what that mouse down event meant. And what do we do? We say, is the thing draggable? Well, I'm going to collapse. In fact, we've got two checks in here. The very first thing I can check is whether or not something is an item. That's, believe it or not, the easiest thing to check, because we can say object, not object, let's make it a cell. If cell.x is less than 0 and cell.y greater than or equal to say greater than 0, and cell.y is less than level current level dot items dot count. There's going to be a mistake here. If current level is null, then debug.logwarn got mouse down without a level loaded. Not allowed to do that. I'm sure it could happen though, so we'll just ignore it in that situation. If that is equal to null, okay, here we go. Okay, so let's start off by getting the item level manager dot, no, I keep on doing this wrong, underscore current level dot items cell dot y, that's needs to be -1 up there, by the way, just because the actual item number is off by 1. If current level dot items cell dot y, okay, that is our item. Coming back to the code, so pre-drag item. Now, obviously we should never come into this state if there are no items left in that slot. So let's check that. If item is item.count is, say, less than or equal to, just in case it ever got negative, I don't know how it would, but let's be a bit defensive here. If item.count less than or equal to 0, then no item instances left. Ignore this case. Okay. That's pretty easy. So in here, we're just going to return. The state is idle already. There's nothing for us to do. They're trying to drag something. It's not valid. We're just going to get out of here. Otherwise, we need to, what do we need to do? Well, we need to set the current state to be pre-drag item. And we need the item source to be item. We need the last location to be the cell, so that we can detect when it gets dragged out. Okay. So that is this case. I'm even going to change the color here. That's that case done. Next, it's around random guy. Probably see you on Monday if I'm streaming then. I'm sure I will. I'm going to split this condition up. The reason for that is it just makes the logic here a little easier to reason through. I can get rid of that return. I can invert this condition. Invert the if. There we go. So this just allows me to have the logic completely fall through. This is the case where you're outside the bounds of the level. We check if it's a valid item, so an actual populated cell within the inventory slots. Cell.x, I do need to check for specifically -1. You don't want someone dragging from over here, for example. That would be bad. Next, in here, we're in the main body of the level. Cell is to the left of the level. This is a valid item drag. Okay. We are in the main body of the level. Oh, I'm not meant to be in here, I'm meant to be in here. So if we're in the main body of the level, we need to check whether or not this is a tile or it's something that's not draggable. They're the only two cases left here. So let's grab the tile. Bar tile is going to be current level dot get tile for the cell. Excuse me. Yeah, thank you very much for joining, Chris P. And enjoy your movie. I'll probably my next episode of my devlog will actually be about this game jam. I don't know if I'll get it out this weekend. I suspect I'll just delay it until next weekend. Yeah, so enjoy your movie, and yeah, you get to see a recap of everything soon. And then I'll get back into normal MMO streaming from Monday as well. We are in the main body of the level. Bar tile equals that. If tile is not equal to null, so this is a valid drag. Valid tile drag. If tile is null, then we're going to be in this not draggable case, and we're just going to fall out into the idle state. That is the state that we are already in. Just as an interest point for code complexity, how big was my drag handler? Okay, 200 lines. It does some other stuff, but yeah, just want to keep an eye on that, make sure that this isn't getting too complicated. I mean, the code itself is simpler, so I'm not too concerned. So isTile is what we're going to process here. And all we need to do in this case is we need to set the current state to dragging. We need to set the tile source to be the tile. And the current level, current location, sorry, last location is going to be the cell. Okay, I think this one's done. So the next one for me to work on is, I don't know. I guess this section's the next one to work on. It's certainly the next important one. So let's do it. It's going to be on selected cell changed. On selected cell changed is going to happen in handle mouse move. Now the way I'm going to do it, I'm going to allow this event to fire every time the mouse moves just a little bit. So for a given cell, it will fire out lots of these handle mouse move events. Every time you move your mouse by a pixel, it'll fire one of these. And then this will filter them out. Welcome back, Random Guy, and thank you for liking the stream. I have no idea how much likes factor into YouTube's algorithm. I've heard rumors that they make absolutely no difference, and they are literally just feedback for the creator now. But it certainly can't hurt to add the likes. I appreciate that. Handle mouse move. If cell is equal to last location, there's nothing to do. We can just get out of there. We haven't actually moved. If current state are you on Discord, Random Guy, by the way? I was just going to suggest if you are on Discord, feel free to send me any kind of screenshots or captures or anything, and because I can go and put a screen capture or screenshot in my next episode if you like of what you're working on. I think it'd be kind of cool to show something that someone else has done as a result of this stream. I think it would be very cool if you get anything worth showing off over the weekend. Let me just look back here. So I'm trying to handle the case. We've got, obviously, if you get a mouse move in the idle state, then there's nothing to do. We just don't care. If we get one in the dragging state, then we do this logic. If we get one in the pre-drag item state, it's very different logic. Okay. So I am going to say, I'm actually going to do this as a switch. Switch on current state. And we've got two cases. We've got the dragging state. We've got the pre-drag item state. Yeah, show it in the next devlog if you're happy with that. If you send me anything, I'd prefer it if it were over the weekend. If you were going to send me anything, but probably anytime next week. I don't know when I'll actually get around to making the devlog. It will likely be released next weekend, I think, so a little over a week away now. But it's going to be about the game jam, so yeah, if you want to include some of your stuff in there, then I'd be more than happy to do that. Handle tile drag. I'm going to do in here. Over in here, let's do a handle item drag. All right. So let's do, I'll just implement that one, implement this one. Excellent. So what do we actually do down in here? We need to check whether or not this is a valid target. Oh, this isn't quite right. Made a mistake somewhere in here. Tile not equal to null is meant to be tile not equal to null and tile dot movable. That would have been a into pattern. Oh, wow, that's kind of cool. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's always a hard question, random guy. I think that for a puzzle game, third person probably makes more sense. That said, first person could add another challenge. Like the problem with first person is it can be difficult to get like an overview of a level. You kind of get a built-in fog of war in a way with first person. So that could be interesting. But if you want to give people an overview of the level they're working on, then third person I think is better. My opinion. Target tile equals nope, we need current level dot get tile cell. Yeah, depending on how much of the third dimension you're going to use, like are you going to have the ability to reflect a laser upwards, for example? If you're not planning on doing that, you could of course just go for a 3D look to the game. So if you're still going to have flat levels but want a 3D look, you could use like an isometric view. Could also be interesting. Technically a 2D game in isometric. Okay. I need to check whether or not the cell actually changed. Um, a bit messy. If current state dot equals idle, then just return. Or cell is equal to the last location. There we go. Oh, that's awesome to hear, Random Guy. Yeah, one of my goals has been to kind of incentivize isn't the right word, but incentivize people to if people have had an idea, I kind of like the idea of people kind of actually acting on it, because you can have an idea all you want, but until you start working on it, you're never going to make progress. All right, so if we are idle or the mouse hasn't moved to another cell, then we have nothing to do. That's fine. So, all right. Encourage was actually the word I was after, not incentivize. I want to encourage people to actually work on ideas they've had. So if they're dragging, then we know that they've moved to another cell here. So we check whether or not it's a valid cell. And if target tile is null, then we know this is a valid move. Mythic Legion, no, I haven't. I only just started. Oh no, 2020. Oh, I thought that was 2022 and he had 6 million views already. um, yeah, I might check that out. I quite like watching devlogs. So if this is a valid move, and we're this is a drag, so there's not much to do here. What we've got to do is ask the current level to update itself. So the current level needs to remove a tile for the old location, and it needs to place a tile like that. It also needs to set the last location to be in the cell. And I think that's all we need to do in here, right? Last location, tile source. So if this isn't a valid drop target, then it will just pass through here and wait until... Oh, no, we need to set the last location regardless. So the logic here is, if this is a valid drop target, so there's nothing on this tile, then move the item to that tile and set the location. If there's something else on this tile, then just make a note that we... it's not quite right. I need another state variable. Hold on. So the issue is, I need to know two things. I need to know the last tile location. So where are we going to be moving from? But I also need to know the last mouse location. Let's actually make this one drag source. The drag source, which is where we're trying to drag from most recently. And this is where we last saw the mouse. Drag source is null. Last mouse location is going to be null. This is better. So, when we first start dragging an inventory item, we weirdly don't need a drag source because the item source is enough to get all of that information. Oh, we might as well just include it. It's the drag source. That's the actual inventory slot that we're dragging out of. This is the contents of that inventory slot. And we just record where we last saw the mouse. In the case of starting a drag on an actual tile, clearly drag source is going to be equal to the cell. Last mouse location is going to be the cell. And so here we care about the last mouse location. So if the current mouse location is different to where we last saw the mouse, we come in here. Mirrors besides the items beside the mirror. So I wanted lenses, and I had a couple of different ways of doing that. I was thinking of having divergent and convergent lenses. So you'd need to place pairs of them to do anything sensible. So placing a divergent lens would cause the ray to go from a straight line to fan out. It would start fanning out. And then you'd have to place a convergent lens in that path to get it down into like a parallel beam. And then you could use a convergent lens to make that come back down, and then a divergent lens to get it back into like a narrow beam. That was one set of items. I also thought it could be good to have, I wasn't sure exactly how the mechanic would work, but have actual slits. So I don't know how much physics you know. Not cell, but classic experiment to do with quantum mechanics. Where's an interference pattern? I just want the interference. Yeah, so this is one way of looking at it. You can get some cool stripes on a wall, basically, and I don't know exactly how. Yeah, this is what an interference pattern looks like. After passing a laser beam through two very, very narrow slits that are very close to each other, the actual image on a wall behind the experiment actually looks like this, which is kind of cool. I don't know exactly what the mechanic would be for that, but I was thinking that there might be a nice little puzzle that involved using those interference patterns to solve some problem. Other than that, I didn't think a huge amount about it. You could potentially have the ability to insert obstacles, intentionally insert obstacles. As I said, I don't know how you'd build that into a level. You mentioned the idea of monsters. That could be cool. So you have to kill the monsters before you can, or blind the monsters before you can get to the end of the level. And those monsters could, of course, be animated. They could be moving around on your level. Yeah, other than that, can't really think of much. Oh, right. Handle the drag. In this case, we know that we're doing a move. This needs to remove the tile, not from the cell. This needs to remove it from the drag source. And we need to set the drag source to be the cell, because we've now moved the item. So next time we move, we're going to be moving it from here. But regardless, the last mouse location is going to get updated to that. I can just do that up in here. Excellent. Did you hear my answer to your question about what items beside mirrors? Yeah, so lenses and at least two different kinds of lenses, divergent and convergent lenses, to cause the beam to broaden out or narrow. And then if you, I'm not sure what your level of physics is, but there's all sorts of cool effects you can get with passing light through narrow slits. The classic example of that is a double slit experiment, which can cause patterns like this to occur on a wall. I don't know how you would. Yeah, here's kind of an animation of how the photons travel when they go through two slits. But there's some cool physics in there, and that could be used to solve some interesting problems. But I don't know exactly what that mechanic would look like. And you mentioned the idea of having monsters that need to be killed or blinded or something, and those monsters could be moved. They could be moving, or they could be stationary. They could be smart and avoid going into a laser beam, so you might have to block the laser beam off and then shoot the laser beam, remove an obstacle just in time to zap them as they go through where the path will be. Or they could be dumb, where they just walk straight into the laser beam. All right. So this looks about right. Handle tile drag, so it moves it. If it's not a valid target, then we're probably going to have to draw like a red box or something. I'll get to that shortly. So I think that's enough for actual tile dragging. So let's do item dragging. Item dragging is a bit more complicated. I want to do this so that it never has to put items back into an inventory slot. So all we're going to do here is check if the tile is valid. Let's copy this code out, in fact. Check if it's valid. If it's a valid move, we no longer remove a tile. We actually want to decrement an item. It's not drag source. It's item source. We then have to place the item source. Yes, mirrors are already rotatable in mine. I've already implemented that. Can I, in fact, demonstrate that? I suspect stuff is just not going to work. But these are rotatable at the moment. I just tap the right mouse button and it rotates it. And the laser gets updated appropriately. My whole thing is all right angles. Is also something that could be interesting. So what could be cool is if you used instead like the mouse wheel to rotate a mirror and have them rotate by just a little bit. the beam propagation would be a lot more complicated because at the moment I literally just walk through the tiles to propagate the beam. But it'd be cool if you could have mirrors that you had to actually align properly. That could be kind of interesting. But yeah, the logic would be basically doing lots of recasts then. So a fair bit more work to support that. It's worth mentioning that if you do lenses that cause this to diverge, you do then pretty much have to do all the raycasting and stuff, and you can have all sorts of weird issues with how you find collisions. I've got an idea in my head, kind of, for how I'd go about implementing that, but it's definitely not trivial. That's why it fell out. I was hoping to have lenses this week, but the code for propagating the laser was just going to be way, way, way too complicated. Oh, right. So, current level, place a tile. I need to know the tile to place. The problem is we only have an item, not a tile. So I'm going to have to create a new tile. It needs a type. It needs movable, which is always true. It's come out of a tile. And then here we just go tile. We set the drag source. Wow, that was... This code has just gotten really, really simple. Worth noting, it's not much shorter, if at all, than other implementation, but this code is just so much simpler. In here, I think we just have to reset the drag operation when we do a mouse up. I don't think there's anything to actually do in there. If I finish the implementation, yep, it handles all of these cases. It handles all of these. It handles the mouse up. Now, if this were not a game jam, if I were working on an actual piece of software for a customer, I would be unit testing this at this point. But I'm not going to do that. How do I integrate this? Alrighty, catch you around, random guy. You can do it, if you prefer, you can do a video capture as well. Either video capture or screenshots, either's fine for me. Just don't take photos or video of your screen with like a phone or something, because that annoys me like nothing else. Well, unless it's a phone game, then that's less bad. Oh, right. Where are we at? I need to integrate this. Where does it live? I think I need to attach... Oh, it's input handler. Input handler is where it exists, where it lives. So now we just go through and start deleting code. This currently needs, it does need to know the level because this handles the rotation as well. It needs the user input, definitely. It needs a level manager because it needs to be able to update its current level. That's fine. I'm going to get rid of selection. How does it do the rotation? Oh no, it doesn't need to. The rotation is not done on the tile map. So I think we can get rid of a lot of this code. Yes, it needs to know the manager. It needs to know the current level. It does not need to know that. It does not need to know which tile is selected. Sorry, it doesn't know how to draw selections because that's going to move up into level renderer. Okay. It does not need to handle the mouse up. It needs a drag manager. Is this valid syntax? Are we allowed anonymous? Oh, that's a bit annoying. I assumed that you'd be able to do anonymous interface implementations. That's okay. Let's just do private class. Yeah, that's better. Override members. We want to override these ones. Oh no, that's right. This is quite weird. I think I can actually make this a class. There's nothing to actually implement in here. And then what we do in here is we just store a reference to one. Pass it through in here. And then it's down in here that we just mouse click. We actually pass that through to mouse dot on mouse down. No. It's handle mouse click, handle mouse move. This is all fine. Come into here, but it's here that we go, we don't want to support that ourselves. We just do mouse dot on mouse down. Handle mouse down. Sure, there's a better way of doing this. Emit mouse down, underscore mouse dot emit mouse up. We need to pass it a cell. This class has everything it needs to emit that cell. Mouse down, how do we do it? Some conversion function I have somewhere. Screen point to cell. Okay. That's mouse click handled. Don't need on mouse up. Don't need on mouse down. I'm going to do any of the selection indicator stuff. That's all going to move elsewhere. Don't need update focus. Do need screen point to cell. Handle mouse move does not care about whether or not the mouse is down. That's a huge amount of code I just deleted. Interesting, we do need the room. Because we need a way of mapping to the actual cell coordinates, so I'll put that back in. Handle mouse move is just going to go to underscore mouse dot handle mouse move. Screen point to cell. Get cursor position. Tile map room. Okay, getting close. Yep. This is meant to be public. These are all meant to be multiple select. There we go. Question mark dot invoke. All right, let's give it a shot. Compiles at least. A lot of code to run for the first time all at once. What do we get? Run it. Got an exception on line 36. Mouse must be null. Coming from line 34. Oh, yeah. Like that could be initialized in the constructor. That one can't be. That has to happen here. Okay, none of this stuff is draggable, which is good. Nor is that. That's not good. Right. I'll just make sure that I was running what I thought I was running. But that's not doing anything. Cool. Breakpoint time. Let's see if we ever see a mouse down event. We do. We see the mouse down. Excellent. So, breakpoints are going to be an issue now because I'm trying to test mouse stuff. And I don't want to have it lose focus every single time I hit a breakpoint. So I'm going to throw in some logging here. Handle mouse down, handle mouse move. And handle mouse up. I won't even log the cell. Nobody cares. I mean, this isn't right. It's not explaining what I'm seeing. Because I am expecting it to come in here and place the tile, but this should absolutely be changing the current state to be dragging. Because once we place that item, it's definitely not the issue, but let's at least see what we get out of this. So I get nothing. What? Oh, I probably had a breakpoint set. Get rid of all my breakpoints. I think someone has just come into one of the streams onto Twitch. Welcome. Just refactored my drag and drop code and it doesn't work. So just trying to debug that at the moment. Yeah, we're getting lots of mouse move events. Not all that surprising. On mouse move, I'm going to get rid of that log message for on mouse move because that is going to annoy me. So we know that's firing. Hopefully we see these more specific events fire while we're in a drag. Run, rerun, just make sure it's in a known state. We see the mouse down. We see the mouse up. Awesome. Now, when I try and drag this one, we get a mouse down, but not a handle item. So this must be did I actually drag that item properly? Yeah, mouse down with -1, 1. Okay, time for a breakpoint. I expect that not to fire, but as soon as I move out of this cell, I am expecting it to have fired. What? Okay, conditional breakpoint on not current state dot equals state dot idle. So I want to see after I've clicked and I do a mouse move, what happens in here. Now the first move will be a boring one. So let's just go click, drag. I set state? Because that would do it. Handle mouse down is meant to set the state. Oh, there it is. Redrag item and dragging. Is it getting into either of those? No, it's never coming into those states. All right. Breakpoint there. So I'm expecting to come into this code path here. We log, we check that we're in idle. We grab our current level because we can't do this if we don't know the level. I'm expecting cell.x to definitely be less than 0. I'm expecting cell.x to be equal to 1. This is meant to be greater than or equal to 0. And this, for reference, is meant to be a -1. Okay, let's try that again. Get rid of that breakpoint. Okay. Still not working. I've got a breakpoint on here, so I expect it to be hitting that. Let's just go and step through this code again. In fact, I can slightly simplify. I just want to make this code a little bit clearer because all these -1s and things are a little bit annoying. If x is less than 0, then we are going to consider, let's go item index. This is going to be equal to cell.y -1. That's where the inventory is just offset by 1. So if we are specifically in the index column and item index is greater than or equal to 0 and item index is less than the number of items, then grab the item index. Grab the item for that index and then do the rest of the code. Item.count, I believe, is 1. We've had more people on YouTube all morning and than on Twitch, but now we've got 4 people on Twitch and no one on YouTube. It's bouncing around quite a bit. So hello to everyone who's here on Twitch. Feel free to ask any questions. I never mind being distracted by chat. Okay, on mouse up, if I can find that again. Drag manager. So I've got a breakpoint here. Hit play. When I do a mouse down on here, I expect it to hit that breakpoint and then go into the pre-item drag state. So here we go. That is correct. Item index should be 0. It is. Cell dot x is -1. Item index is between 0 and count. We should step in. We grab the item. Item.count is 1. That's fine. Yes, we set the state to drag. We configure all the other stuff. And then we go. Okay, so we're definitely getting into that state now. How do I get rid of... Oh, here we go. Here comes a mouse move. Yeah, and in this case, the cell is equal to the last move location. So that's because I just kind of wiggled the mouse a bit while I was dragging on here. Came into here, said, oh, we've got nothing to do, so that's fine. Let's get rid of that breakpoint. I'm expecting to hit this one next. And that should happen as soon as I drag this across to here. Correct, there we go. So we grab that. We come in to handle the item drag. It should see that this is not a valid tile, which is correct. So it should just ignore it. Excellent. I'm going to get rid of some more breakpoints. We'll leave the dragging one in for now. Oh, that looks good. Okay, not quite there. And we can't drag once we're out of items. Excellent. So this is going to be something wrong in handling mouse move. I'm going to make sure that we are in fact hitting this case. So this should happen as soon as I move into the second cell. So let's walk through this. It won't happen when I cross this boundary. It won't happen when I cross this boundary. But as soon as I get to the next one, we are now considered to be dragging. Here we go. So that is working. And this is a perfect breakpoint, really. F8. Handle tile drag. Here we go. I expect target tile to be null because there's nothing in the destination. We should have a tile source. This dot tile source is null. Okay, I know exactly what this is. Let's just close that down. So the issue here is when we enter the dragging state, I'm not setting the drag source properly, I suspect is it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create some functions, because the benefit of a state machine is that you always know, it's always possible to tell what state it's in. But in this case, I need to set a bunch of fields every time. So I'm just going to do a private void. Welcome back, Random Guy. I think Twitch is still outnumbering YouTube. Doesn't happen often, but not complaining. Private void, enter transition to pre-item drag. Now, what do we need to enter that pre-item drag stage? Let's set a bookmark. Normally, when we go into pre-drag item, it's called pre-drag item. So this is the code I'm going to do. We need enter transition to pre-drag item. My comment was only just about a random guy. My comment was just about the number of people on YouTube and Twitch. Yeah, and my numbers are always a bit out of date, but I believe you're the only one on YouTube at the moment, but we've got 3 people over on Twitch at the moment. Okay, transition to pre-drag item. We need to know the item source. That's not right. Add a parameter, create a parameter. Like that. And we need a cell. Yes. The cell has to be defined. I'll do it cell comma item, makes more sense to me. Then we pass through cell and item. Okay, so now we know that that we're passing through the appropriate information here. Now, this is where my bug is. It's somewhere in here. This must be defined. I am going to put a double check in here. If item is null, then throw an argument exception. New argument exception. Item cannot be null. Oh, wow. That's kind of cool. So next, I need the dragging state to be done. Yeah, this is the correct place to do it. So let's grab that. Transition to dragging. And up in here, private void transition to dragging. Rename that one to drag source. Vector to int. This one is going to be the drag source as well. I assume this is going to take a tile state. And let's see what we get. That needs to be drag source. That one needs to be drag source. Like that. Okay, code so far hasn't changed. However, here is where I am having issues. So let's call this here transition to dragging. cell, tile. Item source should be null. Let's just be explicit about all of our state here. Tile source should be null here. All right. Let's try this. That's inserted the item into the world. We now move it across by one. Oh, that looks like it's working. I don't know what the bug was, but that little tiny refactor of the code seemed to do the right thing. Okay, something's still not right here. I shouldn't be able to make that disappear. Otherwise, I've just now lost my mirror. I know exactly what this is. When we are doing a drag, I do also need to make sure that the cell.x is greater than or equal to 0. So if you do try to drag off into the inventory space, talking about here, invert it. No, I don't want to do that. That's horrible code. Can I disable that? That was, yeah, I don't like that tip. All right. Running this. My zoom code is not working. Fix that in a second. There we go. We can move it into the world. It can do stuff. We've got 2 of them now. We move one into the world. Move the other one into the world. We can't move it out. Bring it up there. And we can now rotate this mirror and complete the level. All right. Inventory is looking much better now. Zooming the level. I think this is pretty straightforward. When we change the camera, which I think is down the bottom here, yes. To do, factor in the inventory. So let's do that now. Size.x size x is going to be equal to size.x plus 2. We know that we need those extra 2 blocks. So we'll bar size y as well while we're in here. Size x, size x, size y. That's not quite right. That gets our scales correct. But our position needs to be offset by 1. I think that's right. Try it, and we get still wrong. actually restart it properly. Let's just make sure I'm testing what I think I'm testing. I would have thought this was just a complete no-brainer. Size X, size.x is 10, I believe. Let's just get a breakpoint in here. Run. In this case, it's an empty level. Wait, what? Size.x is 10. So what we're saying in here is we need to factor in 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's correct. Size.y should be 8. Excellent. So I expect us, normally we'd set the X coordinate of the camera to be a 5 because our map is 10 blocks. But now we've got these extra 2 blocks off to the left. So we want it to be 5. Ah. Yeah, I think that this is wrong. I think this is size X divided by 2 minus 1, whereas the X scale is meant to be size X plus 2. Okay, let's try that. Hacky code. That looks better. Much better. Okay, that's that code fixed. I have no sound. Maybe I should put some sound in. I think first I'm going to have to go take a lunch break. I forgot to eat breakfast today, so I haven't eaten all day. But I expect to be back online in about an hour. I'll just kick off a new stream. Checking. Yeah, so I'll go take a bit of a break and probably stream myself trying to find on some sounds and stuff to add in here. I also noticed I haven't really tied this into the theme yet. So I'll probably try and put a little bit of storyline in by putting something in between each of the scenes. So thank you for joining me this morning my time. Hopefully catch everyone around a bit later. See ya.